You know, it's wild to think about, but every single cell in your body is like a tiny, bustling factory. Today, we're going to peek behind the curtain at one of its most critical and, frankly, brilliant systems, its internal climate control. We're talking all about the hidden world of pH regulation. So let's just dive right in.
Okay, so to get us started, I've got a question for you. What in the world could a flu virus possibly have in common with your stomach acid? I know, it sounds like a weird riddle, right? But the answer, well, it uncovers something fundamental about how our bodies work, from the smallest part of a cell all the way up to a huge organ. And don't worry, by the time we're done here, you'll have the answer.
So let's start by zooming way in, right inside a single cell. Now, it's easy to picture it as just a blob, but it's really more like a super organized factory. It's got all these different departments, we call them organelles, and each one has a very specific job to do.
And just like in a factory, where one room might need to be ice cold and another one super hot, these different parts of the cell need totally different environments. And the single most crucial condition they're constantly controlling, acidity, or, it's pH. The main factory floor, the cytoplasm, is at 1 pH, but the little specialized rooms inside it are totally different. And that difference isn't just a small detail. It is absolutely essential for everything to run smoothly.
So, what happens when things go wrong, when that control system just fails? Let me tell you, it's not just a minor hiccup for the cell. The consequences are really, really serious and can cause problems for your whole body.
I mean, look at this list. The scale of the problems is just staggering. If the pH is off, it's like the cell's postal service goes haywire. Packages get sent to the wrong address. The protein assembly line grinds to a halt. Receptors on the cell surface just stop working. It's even connected to abnormalities in tumors. And here it is. This brings us back to our riddle. Viruses, like the flu, are smart. They can actually hijack this pH system to build more of themselves and spread. So that's the connection. It becomes crystal clear that getting the pH right is literally a matter of life and death for the cell.
So how in the world does a cell pull this off? How does it create all these different pH zones? Well, it's not random. It's a super controlled journey where the acidity goes up step by step along a couple of main pathways. Yeah, you can really think of it as an acidity assembly line.
So let's follow one of those paths. It's called the secretory pathway. This is basically the shipping department. It's the route for stuff like proteins that are meant to be sent out of the cell. And as these proteins make their way along the line, they travel through rooms that get more and more acidic. That increasing acidity is actually what helps them fold up and get ready for their job.
Our journey begins here, in the endoplasmic reticulum, or the ER for short. This is where the proteins are first put together, and the environment in here, it's pretty neutral. We're talking a pH of about 7.0.
Okay, next stop. From the ER, our brand new protein moves over to the Golgi apparatus. And boom, right away, the pH drops a little bit, down to about 6.7. It's not a huge drop, but it's super significant. It's a signal that kicks off the next stage of processing and sorting.
And as it keeps moving through the Golgi, things get even more acidic. Now we're down to a pH of around 6.3. And this very specific level of acidity is what allows a whole new set of enzymes to jump in and do their thing, adding the final bells and whistles to the proteins.
All right, the final stop on the line, the secretory vesicles. These are basically the cell's FedEx boxes, and inside these, the pH takes a nosedive all the way down to 5.5. This is the most acidic point in the whole journey, and it's the perfect environment for the final packaging before the cargo gets shipped out. It's just a brilliant step-by-step system.
Now what's really cool is that the cell uses this exact same trick for a totally different job, the endocytic pathway. That's the one for bringing stuff into the cell. So you can see here both the secretory and endocytic pathways use this progressive drop in pH, but they do it for opposite reasons. One is for prepping things to go out, the other is for sorting and breaking down things that come in. It's just an incredibly elegant and efficient design.
This all leads to the big question, right? How does the cell actually do this? How does it create and maintain these super precise pH levels? Well, it's not magic. It's all thanks to a tiny, microscopic machine, an engine that's working around the clock.
And here it is, the hero of our story, the V-ATPase. This thing is a protein complex, and it's basically the cell's primary proton pump. Remember, it's those protons that make something acidic. So the V-ATPase uses the cell's fuel, ATP, to just actively shove protons into an organelle, which of course makes it more acidic. This little guy is the engine that makes the whole system go. But it's not just about pumping like crazy. It's actually a really delicate balancing act. You've got these V-ATPases constantly pumping protons in, but at the exact same time, there are these special channels that let some protons leak back out. And to make sure you don't get a huge electrical charge buildup, because all those positive protons would do that, negative ions like chloride come flowing in to balance things out. It's this constant push and pull that results in a perfectly stable pH. It's incredible.
Okay, so we've seen how this works on a tiny microscopic scale. So now let's zoom all the way out and see how the exact same principles are used to create one of the most extreme environments in the entire human body, your stomach.
The cells that line your stomach, they're called parietal cells, are just absolute acid-producing machines. They use a really similar system of pumps and channels to churn out hydrochloric acid. And get this, they make the inside of your stomach 1,000,000 times more acidic than the inside of the cell producing it. 1,000,000. That's just an unbelievable feat of biological engineering.
So how do they pull that off? Well, the parietal cell has a whole team of 4 key proteins that work together in perfect harmony. You've got the main pump, an H+K+ ATPase, plus a few channels and exchangers that all have a super important job. Let's break down exactly how this team gets it done.
Okay, step 1, you've got the main engine. It's a lot like that V-ATPase we just talked about. This pump uses energy to push protons out of the cell and directly into the stomach. And for every proton it kicks out, it pulls a potassium ion in.
Now this is the really clever part. That pump needs potassium on the outside to work, right? It needs something to swap for the proton. So what does the cell do? It has this special potassium channel that just lets the potassium it just brought in leak right back out again. It's this genius little recycling loop that makes sure the main pump never ever runs out of fuel.
So we've got the H, the proton, for our hydrochloric acid, but what about the Cl? Well, that's step 3. A totally separate channel for chloride opens up. And because opposites attract, those negatively charged chloride ions just flood out of the cell, drawn to all the positive protons. Once they're both out in the stomach, they meet up and bam, you've got hydrochloric acid.
But hang on a second. If the cell is pumping out all this acid, shouldn't its own insides become super alkaline and, like, destroy itself? Nope. And this is the final brilliant piece of the puzzle. On the complete other side of the cell, there's another transporter. It takes the waste product from making all those protons, bicarbonate, and trades it for a fresh chloride ion from your blood. This does 2 things. It gets more chloride into the cell to be pumped out later, and it gets rid of the waste, keeping the cell's own pH perfectly neutral. It is an absolute masterpiece of efficiency.
So let's wrap this up. What are the key takeaways here? Well, first, our cells are these incredible little factories with their own climate control, and pH is the master thermostat. Second, getting that acidity just right is critical for pretty much everything, from sorting proteins to fighting off viruses. Third, this whole system is powered by that tiny little engine, the V-ATPase. And finally, your stomach uses these exact same ideas, pumps, leaks, and balances, but on a massive scale to digest your food. It really is all connected.
And that brings us right back to our original question, the connection between a flu virus and your stomach acid. It's this shared, fundamental reliance on perfectly controlled pH. It's a universal principle woven into our biology. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If our cells are managing these tiny, complex factories every single second without us even thinking about it, what other invisible marvels are happening inside you right now?